Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. Ed, how's the New Jersey winter treating you, my man?
Like shit. It was 6 degrees this morning, -3 when I woke up, and I still had to take my ass to work. But that's how we do it here in dirty Jersey. We make it happen. So.
Speaking about making it happen, it sounds like we mentioned last week about PFL fighters maybe need to speak up, or Bellator fighters, I should say. We heard Kai Kamaka speak up, and
Patricio Pitbull.
Somebody up, another bigger name. I feel like it just went off as well, and feels like that's just going to have to be the way of the road here. I know Nemkov's fight, apparently I saw a report from Nolan King saying that he believed this is his last fight under contract there. So imagine to see Nemkov move on. Now I'm glad to see this. What I'm not glad to see is Pitbull signing with GFL. If this is where these guys are going to end up, I don't know if this works out well for anybody. Obviously, we have the draft, the biggest draft in MMA history on Friday. Also, the first draft with GFL at 8 p.m. Eastern. But I hope it works out. But this is gonna be an interesting week when we find out how that's going to unfold.
Yeah, we'll see. They are putting out press releases. Their stuff is the guy is sort of responsive that's handling them. Although he says he has no details every time I ask him stuff. So it's. And then if you saw, I don't know if you saw when I put that's post out on social media when they put out the press release about where their stuff is streaming. Streaming everywhere. They mentioned the Zone pay-per-view. What's up, Antoine? NBA G League game. The thing he said was the listing of the Rumble's one of them, which is cool. I get it. YouTube Rumble, your standard Instagram. But then I saw payperview.com and the Zone, which is you know how I feel about the Zone. I think we've covered that enough on this podcast. When it comes to MMA, I feel like they're not very invested in mixed martial arts as they are in boxing. But the biggest one was and this is not to slight what we're going to talk about later, BKFC, because we said like 2 episodes ago, I think it should be the other way around with the ownership of BKFC and Triller. But Triller is one of the apps that's streaming on, which makes me think that they're going to be in business with Triller. And I don't know how to feel about that, because outside of BKFC, well, what else? I know they do a lot of other stuff. It used to be Fight TV. There's a lot of pro wrestling and other stuff on there, but I wouldn't call them the cleanest people to do business with.
No, their history is not the cleanest record, but they got, at least they're getting broadcast. At least it's kind of, like, I don't know do we know, isn't PFL this weekend? Do we know if we can even watch that? Has that been determined yet? I mean, I know that was a little bit of controversy a week ago.
Yeah, no, if you're talking about the Champions thing, that's going to be on Max. So they still have some sort of deal with Max, HBO Max. The Champions series thing that's on Saturday. It'll be on early Saturday. I'm not going to watch it till, I'll watch the replay at night because I'm out and about on Saturday. Another horrible thing about them doing everything over there in Dubai, Saudi Arabia, wherever they're based now. So it's like that's the least on my radar. I mean, I think there's a lot going on this weekend. You guys know I work with Spectation Sports. Cage Titan 69, first event of the year for them, is on. So that's like my live fight that I'm going to be watching, since I interviewed one half of the main event, Tom Pagliaro. That interview's up on Spectation Sports if you haven't seen it. But that's going on, and Knuckle Mania is going on. So, like, I hate to say it, but I'll be catching that probably Sunday with my coffee. The Bellator or PFLator or whatever it is now. The Bellator is dead, but they're still using the titles and the name.
It's all over. Who knows what it is? Glad it's on Max. Happen to have that at this time, so be able to catch the replay. So cool. that
I don't
works
know if you want to
there.
jump. So last weekend we had we have this nice. I put in the description. We got a nice BKFC knuckle sandwich because of last weekend you were at the Pachanga, and then they're in Philadelphia this weekend. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, so last weekend show,
yeah.
it was Pachanga, always fun place. Wasn't the best fights. Well, it just wasn't. But I've been this is my 8th show, so out of the 8, this was the worst, and
Hmm.
it wasn't a great show. The fights just were so. I'd
So
mentioned
they
in the
were
past.
weird. I thought they were weird. I mean, the pacing was so fast, but like one finish was a sprained ankle. And they counted as a TKO. The other guy, I don't know what happened. He went for like a fake takedown and lifted him up and sort of threw out his back.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
when you watch this, sometimes you can tell people that are not supposed to be there, and it's not an easy thing to train for. So when you're on the early prelims of some of these things, I think honestly, you're probably getting some people who are getting hit with a bare knuckle punch for the first time. And I think that there's a reality check because you can't really train that,
Yeah.
safely. You can't train that unless you've been in a bunch of street fights. You're really not. And even then, I don't know if that's the same as squaring up with somebody who's legally and a skilled athlete. You're not fighting some
Mhm.
schlub outside of a bar, or outside of a high school, when you're younger. This is so it wasn't the best fights. It wasn't the best fights. It wasn't the best talent in there. A couple things just didn't work out, but there was a couple good fights as well. It's gonna happen.
Mhm.
It's the ebbs and flows of the events. Honestly, what it tells me and what I told some of my people that went is I would definitely wouldn't miss this weekend's event because the odds of there being 2 slow shows in a row is I don't
Mhm.
know if it's ever happened to BKFC. So, I would tune in for that. I think they probably put a lot of their ducks into this weekend's show and maybe kind of pulled back a little bit on the
Yeah.
Pachanga show this past weekend. It is what it is. Still fun.
Yeah.
Still
And
exciting.
the Knuckle Mania of this coming weekends, we're gonna look at that in a bit, but we still got to talk about UFC 311 and the Intuit Dome, which I want to say like it's gonna sound weird to say because I mean obviously I wasn't there and I've never been to the Intuit Dome and I wasn't at the Sphere and I've never been in the Sphere. Hopefully I'll get one day to get to go to both of them. But as far as like watching at home, the Intuit Dome setup or arena, whatever they call it, it looked more like it looked better for this kind of event. I mean, I know the Sphere was all special effects, but I kind of liked it. Even Joe Rogan during the broadcast was saying like he was like this is like a light Sphere experience or something to that effect because of the way that the stuff around the top and the graphics they had for the fighters and the fights and everything. I just thought for the home viewing experience, it was actually pretty impressive to me. I actually thought it was better. It didn't look so, I don't know. It didn't
It's
look
the
so
it's
lopsided or.
so the arena screen is a halo, like, so let's say imagine the hockey ring or the basketball court in the middle and then a
Mhm.
ring all the way around it that is a scoreboard. So it's a giant ring around the middle of the
Mhm.
arena. So it allows for special effects. I've never seen it in operation. I did go to a David Gilmour concert there, so I have experienced the arena, but they didn't use that, which was kind of surprising, honestly, that night.
Mhm.
But it's definitely set up for it, but I don't think I think it's just the technology of it of because of how big the scoreboard is and how it allows that to kind of be shown like that. Um, I think that you're going to start seeing that in probably more new arenas because it's kind of similar to SoFi Stadium down the
Mhm.
street from them. They have a version of it as well, except it's a football stadium, so it's not as intimate when you're there. It's not as in your face and kind of floating, and they have the seats that light up. That they're the owner of the Clippers, Steve Ballmer, put a ton of money into that arena, so it is a world class arena. So that's cool though. I at the fights I was able to
Mhm.
catch some of the fights and notice that, and also thought it looked extremely cool, especially during the main event walkouts when the lights went dark
Yeah.
and they were able to have the green lights and all the stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say there was some concern like early in the card. If you watch the whole card, which I did, I had it on there, and I won't say I paid attention to most of them there's a point there where we're getting a lot of decisions early in the night, and I'm like, well, okay, for not great for the first pay-per-view of the year. And then it kind of changed when Jesus, I forgot the guy's name, the one that looks like Lionheart Smith. He got his finish, and that kind of like woke me up a little. And then the premier prelim with Barcelos and Talbot, that fight went completely the opposite way folks thought it was going to go. And I was actually, I was impressed with it just because, score one for the old guys, being some young up and comer that the UFC is trying to push on you. I don't know. There's a lot of question marks there because of, I don't know if it was a case of Talbot underestimating Barcelos or maybe he's just, again, maybe the hype machine is not working right over at the UFC in 2025. Who knows? But I was kind of happy that Barcelos won. That's not a fight we picked either.
No, it's not a fight we picked. It's crazy. It would have been crazy to be there in Vegas to have. Well, I wouldn't have bet against Talbot because he was an epic favorite. This goes down statistically as one of the bigger upsets ever. Speaking of gambling, I hope some people put some money on Merab as we get there at plus 300. Remember, I said keep that one separate from parlays. Now, the parlay, the parlay would not have hurt you with the Moicano change though. So had you avoided Moicano and just the parlay would have became a single fight bet and you would have cashed out. Not to jump too far ahead, but let's jump far ahead. I didn't catch a ton of the fight, but from what I've read and from what I did manage to see, it looked like my ideas, at least, of it being a nonstop machine that is Davishvili going after him nonstop, and basically to the point where you almost have to judge it for him just out of sheer movement and aggressiveness and show of strength, basically. Not always the most exciting shit, but like it sounded to me from what I read that people were kind of like amazed by what they were seeing, and even though maybe it wasn't the most.
They need to put that guy in a lab and like check his blood to see if it's made of Red Bull or some shit, because that dude, somebody just put a compilation of all the shit he does outside of the cage, and his teammate Dennis Bazooka shared it just before we started. Before I started recording on, I've interviewed Bazooka for Spectation before he got signed with the UFC, and I'm just kind of like, that dude, he's the type of guy that if you're going out with a group of friends and Merab is one of them, that's the guy that you're like, oh, who's coming tonight? And Merab's coming, and you're like, oh shit! Like you have to wonder, what are we getting into? Because the dude is just there's no shut off button for him. He's diving head first into blocks of frozen lake and then dancing on ledges of buildings that are, I don't know how high up in the air. Like, I'm like, yo, when I saw that, I was just like, you know what? Not for nothing. That's why he beat one of Khabib's family members, because he's insane. He's got insane energy.
Yeah. No, it's bizarre. He's a freak of nature when it comes to that. So
he's not losing anytime soon. That's it.
What he loses, he'll just get caught.
Yeah.
That's what it'll be. He's not going to get beat. It's just going to be he's going to get caught.
Yeah,
and that's how it'll be the first time, and then see and you wonder how adjustments you can make. But at some point, that's probably the only thing that's going to stop him, because I don't know what else you could do.
Like, how do you stop somebody that doesn't stop? That doesn't stop coming at you.
It's be bigger than them. Really would be the only way would be to be a lot bigger than them. Like if he decided to try to go up in weight or something, which no reason for it. If anything, a Pantoja fight, Pantoja coming up sounds like a fun fight.
They got to make a super fight with him at this point, because it's like, do you want to see him and O'Malley again? No, I'm not interested.
I don't want to see that. I don't unless it's a fresh fight, and but I don't. I think Aljamain Sterling commented on that and really pointed out the fact that it's hard to sell a fight when it's just you want to watch 5 rounds of a guy hoping to land a punch, and it's hard to sell. It's not hard to sell because it's O'Malley, but it's hard to sell to people that really know kind of what they're paying for. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But Merab moves up way up the rankings, and I'm not going to get into this GOAT shit and all that. It changes every other week. It's dumb talk now.
Yeah, it is.
It's dumb. It's dumb.
Really is.
It really. It's jumped the shark beyond belief at this point when people talk about the GOAT. So that's irrelevant. But a tremendous win. Awesome. Let's backtrack real quick here. Yuri Prohaska picks up a knockout win. In a fight I did catch, and a
Yeah,
fun fight, and a fight that you expected to go kind of sloppy strike fest that you kind of expected. And Yuri did his thing and landed something, and eventually landed a nice hook that
yeah.
put Hall down. Actually dropped him twice. Um, I don't know if Yuri ever beats Pahea. I don't know if he's tight enough in his game to get through and not make a mistake, which Alex will take advantage of. But that doesn't mean you're not a fun ass fighter to watch, man. And I hope they book him 6 times a year. I mean, he's fun to watch. His whole act is fun. Everything's fun about him.
Well, he's fun, but it's also kind of like when you watch him and then you think about the Pajeda fight and you think about how Pajeda fights. Like he does, Prohaska does a lot of things that are concerning, even in that fight. Like he'll landed some shots because of that weird, he has that weird hands down. I don't know what he does that for, where that comes from. And he said afterward, when he spoke with Megan O'Leary at the for the ESPN MMA YouTube channel post-fight interviews, like after the Octagon one, and he kind of said like, I need to spend more time like doing actual training and less time like in the woods and all the other stuff. Like he still considers that part of his whole, regimen, which is the mental toughness and the durability because that's what all that stuff is for. But he was like, what I fixed was it's done in the training room, and I'm glad he kind of recognized that. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see what's next for him, but definitely impressive, and we both picked him to win too.
Yep. Main event was a change. We obviously didn't get the Moicano Dariush fight. Moicano steps in some kind of really kind of bizarre circumstances with Arman Sarukian. I don't know if we really know the real story, if we really will ever know the real story.
Yeah.
But weird situation where he drops out with a back injury and weight cutting.
Yeah, and Dana White's kind of like reaction when he was asked about it, like especially they're like, oh, does he get the because of what happened, does he get it? And he was just literally like, no. He goes back to the drawing board. So usually when you hear something like that, it's because something
stupid. Yeah. I think he may have been trying to break dance or something on Nina show or podcast, something the week of the fight. I think he did something. Now I'm not saying he did it, but
if that's the case, then they need to get rid of her and or say something like what the fuck does she do anyway besides bringing a bunch of horny ass 18 to whatever year olds that just want to see her make puffy lips at the camera, like if she had something to do with his back thing for that, just a skit. I mean, the UFC production people need to be like, hey, I know we pay you to do shit to make people watch, but don't go goofing off and getting these guys hurt.
Yeah. Well, if I wanted to listen to somebody who's pretty and not know what she's talking about, they should have given Ariane a mic 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And just let her talk as she's walking around the ring, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, what is a ring girl? We're getting commentary from our ring girl about the fights. I mean, that's basically where we're at. So, but whatever, she's making a ton of money. Good for her. Yeah. But yeah, if you're challenging dudes to fucking playing Twister and shit week of the fight week, maybe that's
yeah.
I'm not saying that's what happened, but I did see something that looked a little bit, maybe.
No, I saw that too. But I just, but besides back to the fights, we can't not mention RDR's quick work of Kevin Holland. I mean, the dude, one thing I want to say though about that fight, like he got Kevin Holland down. He threw one jab and then took Kevin Holland down. And then Kevin Holland was trying to work his guard or whatever he was doing. He eventually did pass with his guard with a beautiful pass, but he took a lot of. He says he's fine. He didn't get hurt, but Kevin Holland marked up his face. He hit him a lot, and I actually thought because don't forget Kevin Holland knocked out Jacare when he was in his guard. So I'm like when RDR was in his guard, trying to control his hands or whatever he was doing, and he was posturing and trying to work that pass. There was points that I was just like, yo, my training in jiu-jitsu is pressure passing, so I was in my house yelling pressure because he's standing up. to break the guard. And I mean, he obviously had a plan that was way better and worked out really, really well. But I was just concerned with I don't know if he was overly patient or whatever. He did say like he knew he was going to beat Kevin Holland afterward. He just knew it from as soon as the fight was booked. Now he's asking for a top 5 guy, so I don't know if beating Kevin Holland means you should get a top 5 guy. I would say when I was looking at the rankings, I was looking a little lower than that, and the name that jumped out at me at the time because I know those was before Tuesday. Paulo Costa. I'm wondering if they're going to put him against Paulo Costa, you know. And when I see that name, I'm like, okay, maybe if they book that fight, is this like him fighting Malikin? Because Costa's a pretty big guy.
I was going to say he might have PTSD looking across the ring at that one.
So I don't know if he gets a top 5 guy, but I think Costa at the time was 8 or 9 or whatever. You'd have to look at the rankings. But, you know, that's a fight that jumped out at me when I'm wondering what's next for RDR. So if he fought in November, and then he says he's ready to go again if they need him. So November and then January. So maybe sometime in April we'll see him.
Probably April, Miami, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, June's usually somewhere like Chicago or something like that, and then they usually swing back in for July Vegas. So, yeah, I mean, overall, seemed like it was a good event. Like I said, I didn't get to watch it with a microscope, but what I saw looked entertaining. Islam is a beast. I mean, just incredible. I don't even, you know what I mean? Like, we're going to get to a point where we're start wondering when he's going to lose.
That's my old boss, Joseph Correas from Proof Media. Telling him he wants to do a Nogi UFC Gym North Brunswick, New Jersey.
Oh, geez, that's funny. Well, I'm not a black belt, so that's all you edit. Enjoy.
I'm
always
kind of out of shape in the winter.
Patty Pimblett moment. But, that's funny.
Oh yeah,
that's
weird.
funny. So, main event this weekend: BKFC Knucklemania 5. I was lucky enough to attend Knucklemania 4. This one moves from LA to Philadelphia for the first time. First time in the state of Pennsylvania. And the main card is loaded, and the main event is names, and there is going to be some violence on this card as I'm seeing names that I'm recognizing, and I mean dudes that will literally lose every tooth they have in their face in the middle of this ring.
I mean the Alvarez, we got to just talk about what's drawing everybody in. It's in Philly. That's Alvarez neck of the woods against Jeremy Stevens, and you know, Alvarez 1-1. His loss, though, he was almost winning up until, you know, it was Mike Perry. But it's like there's a lot on his side. I feel like there's a lot of steam behind him, not just his skill level. Just being able to do something like this in his hometown, I mean, that's got to do something for your the way you're training, you know, and the way you show out on fight night. The energy from the crowd is probably going to fuel him to do something with Stevens, and oddly enough, Stevens is coming in like the bad guy in this. Like Alvarez was kind of, they just put up a video where Alvarez was kind of like you know, he's like trying to come in with sportsmanship, and Jeremy Stevens is acting like he's fighting Conor McGregor or somebody, and it's like, dude, I mean, who's also going to be there? McGregor's going to be there, so this is it's going to be one hell of an event, that's for sure. But I don't see Alvarez losing in Philly. In his hometown, and I like I'm not for nothing, the bare knuckle fights I've seen him fight. I mean, I feel like he does it well. Like Mike Perry, he lost to Mike Perry. You know, like you're gonna lose to Mike Perry.
Yeah. It's funny because he's kind of fighting like Mike Perry light. You know, or Diet Mike Perry in this fight. And not to be disrespectful to Stevens at all. He's built for this incredible. I mean, it's hard for me to really pick against either of these guys because historically I wouldn't see either of these guys lose in many bare knuckle fights from what I've seen from them in MMA and in bare knuckle. You know, gun to my head, I'm going to pick Alvarez because Alvarez is one of my favorite fighters of all time. I mean, but you know, I would be interested. Like, I don't know, gambling hasn't taken over this scene very much yet, but Stevens is a live fighter in there, and he swings monstrous punches. So if there's going to be if somebody's going to knock somebody out cold, it's Stevens landing a punch. If someone's going to beat someone to a pulp, I think it's Alvarez on Stevens. I
that makes
think
sense.
You know what I mean? I think the volume is Alvarez, but I think oh my God, thank God that missed me by a half-inch punch comes from Stevens, and I think it's going to be a great brawl, man. And it's cool. Everything about it, a big arena, Philadelphia, Alvarez at home for the first time in God knows how long. I know he hasn't fought there in at least, probably 15 years. So pretty cool to see. Co-main event heavyweight championship, Mick Terrell, who picked up the title from Lorenzo Hunt at BKFC 4 when Hunt was dropped and snapped his arm on the way down to the mat. He faces Ben Rothwell, who's also been extremely dominant, but also has been on the other side of a fighter dropping out of a fight. So he gets rewarded with a title shot after absolutely bludgeoning the first 3 fighters that he fought in the squared circle, whatever we're calling it, BKFC ring. I think truly Rothwell is built for this. I like Mick Terrell. He's 9-1. He's an absolute savage. I think Rothwell packs a big enough punch that he just hurts you in the sport. He's a giant among giants, and I think that is, unless he gets hit with a mega punch coming in, maybe a little slow, maybe Terrell pot shots him with something really, really good. I think over time, I think Rothwell is gonna. I think he's fearless right now. I don't think because he hasn't felt the loss yet in this. So I think the danger of that giant man coming at you is scary in this, especially with a title belt on the line. Guy who's never had a world championship has a chance to finally wrap one around his waist. I think Rothwell picks this up, and I think we see one of the most epic post-fight speeches we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I mean that's for sure. We know he can do those. I mean, not for I like Beck Rawlins. I mean, she's kind of like, I guess you could call her an OG for this promotion in BKFC. And she stepped away, went to Bellator for a bit, came back. This fight is definitely one of their featured fights that's worth watching it. And I have always been a fan of just watching her fight. I mean, she's great on Fight Week, doing media and stuff. So I mean, they're pulling out all the stops on the East Coast for this event.
Beck's the better fighter in this fight. Starling's tough as hell, but she takes massive amounts of punishment. I mean, a lot of people, if you look back at her photo against, I think it was Christy Sigala, where they went to battle, and it's about, from 2 extremely attractive women to 2 people that look like they just walked, or filming Living Dead remake or whatever, I'm going to go with Rawlins. I'm not looking to beat anybody. I mean, they're savages. They're both savages. She's just a better fighter. And I think that she lands a hard enough punch that she gets Starling, backing off a little bit. And I think she damages her and wins the fight, whether it's via cut or whether it's, I think Rawlins does damage in that fight.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just think she's great for the promotion too. But, with Connor being there, and all the other stuff they're doing, I would imagine that there's going to be. Oh, look, they have the odds right up here. Weren't you mentioning the odds?
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, up across the top.
So Alvarez, slight underdog. Terrell's a huge favorite. That's weird. Okay, so I was wrong on the odds on that one. Rawlings favorite. Okay, yeah. So it's. I'm surprised that Rothwell's such a big underdog, but heck, we'll see where that one goes. I mentioned, savages fighting and willing to lose their teeth. Zach Kalmus finally gets onto a main card of a main big event like this. I saw him make his debut out in Alabama. Literally saw him get his teeth knocked out of his face in a losing effort to Bobo O'Bannon in his opening fight. Yet he walked around the arena taking photos. I've never seen somebody damaged in my life with a bigger smile on their face, knowing that they were in for reconstructive surgery across their entire. And in fact, I think he had to have plastic surgery to save like some of his teeth. Is an absolute savage. I mean,
that's insane.
I don't even know when he fights. He comes out, rips his shirt off. I mean, he looks like an absolute beast. but honestly, I mean, one of those guys you kind of like. I was hesitant to walk up to, especially when he's got plasma coming out of the sides of his face. but one of the nicest down to earth people I ever met, and one of the most grateful people that I even was willing to come up to him and just thank him for his effort in the ring that night. So I'll be rooting for him. He's had some ups and downs. He's 5-2 now, but he's 4-1 since that debut against a seasoned fighter that he fought. So he gets a chance to move up. I'm just rooting for the guy. Don't know him other than that time I met him, but just it kind of personifies what the crazy man that goes into this sport. And
yeah, I mean, just to I meant to ask you earlier when we were talking about Knuckle, the fight night from last weekend. The fighter that you were concerned with, he got a knockout.
Picked up a win.
Yeah,
ended up being a decision. Other fighter fought back and made it interesting towards the end. But yes, he did drop his opponent. I believe it was twice early on in the fight. And picked up a win. So that was cool to see. Happy for him. You can see the joy in his corners. His trainers and everybody that the dude's put in work. Fought 3 times this year in bare knuckle, picked up a win and moves on. So unfortunately, Fernando Gonzalez's fight was canceled last minute. His opponent unfortunately wasn't professional and didn't make it. Didn't even make it to weight
the event.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, it was, spoke to Fernando. He looked in great shape. Looked in the best shape I've seen him personally that I've ever seen him personally in. I didn't know him in when he was making kind of his run in his earlier days, but he looked in great shape. Talked to him about it. Talked about getting in there again. So he's roaring ready to go. And man, they got a lot of good stuff going for him. Like I said, the event wasn't great this past one I went to, but it happens, man. I've been to dozens of boring MMA events. And I always just figured the next one's going to be that much greater. So I would definitely tune to BKFC this weekend. It's on the DAZN.
And talking about, like you said, about boring MMA events, I mean, I thought that's where UFC 311 was going. Thankfully, it picked up, towards once the fight before the Talbot fight, the decision stopped, and then Barcelos beat Talbot, and then the main card, the pay-per-view was definitely worth being a pay-per-view with all those fights that they had on there. So we're off to a good start in 2025, man. I'm looking forward to the rest of the year.
Correct. Tickets also went on the sale. Anybody interested in UFC 313 Las Vegas, March 8th, went on sale this week to pre-sale. Today to Fight Club, tomorrow's membership club through the newsletter, and then Fridays to the general public. Ankalev versus Pahea, Hooker versus your boy Gagey.
My boy Francis Marshall is on the undercard coming from Jersey all the way out there. So
I believe I'm going to be attending that event. I'm excited to see Gagey, and I'm excited to see Pahea again. Pahea is quickly becoming my guy now, and I know that that's the popular thing for everybody to say. But if they keep booking the dude and he keeps fighting everybody, then it's exactly what anytime, anywhere. Big dude, big. I prefer the heavier weight fighters.
No shenanigans. All he does is show up, fight.
He reminds me of kind of like a Brazilian Fedor. I know he's got more of a personality and stuff, and we're in 2025 and social media stuff. He has to have it, but he really reminds me of it. He's got his celebration. He doesn't disrespect anybody. Everything is about respect, and everything is about just going to work in that cage. And as long as that's the case with him, I know it's not cheap, and believe me, but if I'm ever gonna go to these, and it's the thing I do, he's gonna be one of the guys I'm gonna pay to go watch from this point forward. Gagey, don't know how many more fights he's got left. I was at his first one in the UFC. I don't want to miss his last one. You know what I mean? I'd like to be able to say I did, saw a book with him. So
yeah, Kevin Nicholson. Interesting point from Kevin Nicholson, who's a physical therapist. Back injuries in MMA are cruel, tend to linger. Worth keeping an eye on Armin going into his next bout. Derek Lewis has had that's true. The Derek Lewis thing. Derek Lewis had a recurring back problem for years. Yeah, I mean, didn't he pull out of his last fight just on like day of or something like that? So yeah, it's Yeah, anything that affects your
The
mobility.
difference between the two is when I'm in Vegas, I don't know if I run into Armin eating double cheeseburgers after his fight.
Yeah.
And I've ran into Lewis after the boring Nagano fight. I get back to the hotel and he's eating double cheeseburgers in the casino.
Hey, well.
But hey,
after the fights, it's all fair. It's all fair.
Let's hope though. Armin is a great young fighter. I don't let's pray to God that we don't lose that, because that division is fire, and as long as these guys keep that fight's got to happen. Dana can punish him. He'll go out there, he'll beat Chandler, and then he'll get the fight. You know what I mean? That's what'll happen. And anyways, I think that kind of wraps us up. Again, definitely don't miss BKFC this weekend. Support them if you can. We look forward to possibly getting Sean Wheelock back on the show in the near future. And
Heavyweight's got a burger. Absolutely.
Oh, and for anybody, we got Nicholson here. I'm assuming he's seen it, and if you haven't, on Max, there is a documentary on micro wrestling. 6 episodes. Do not miss it. Do not miss it. It will change your life.
Is it out already?
Oh yeah, it's out.
All right.
Oh yeah, it's
That's
out.
what I'll be watching the
other day. So
yeah. if I'm not here on next week's podcast because I died laughing.
All right, everyone. Have a good night. Thanks for listening. Thank you for the comments, and be safe out there and enjoy the fights this weekend.
You too. I guess we don't get to follow us on Twitter anymore.
Oh, follow us at Combator on Twitter, Coast-to-Coast Combator on Instagram. Follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. And blame him for changing the podcast to Wednesdays when I forgot I need to do our sign outs. Your fault, Ed. It's a different day. I'm 20. I was giving him yesterday at 6:00, but have a good night, everyone. Thanks for listening.